Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at the Korea Society. If you haven't seen our exhibition yet, our two-person show, Dyadic, featuring Annette Her and Hayoon Jay Lee, will be up until December 13th of this year, so make sure you check it out. Also, the artist talk by Annette Her is on our website as well as YouTube channel. So if you have a chance, please check it out. But tonight, it is all about the other half of Dyadic. So please welcome Annette. Please welcome Hayoon Jay Lee with Seph Rodney.
Oh, I suppose we should introduce each other.
Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just
Yeah, please do.
tell the story of how we
Yeah.
met.
Okay.
They were doing open studio visits at
Yeah.
Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts, where you have a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember, did I just wander into your studio one day?
No, we made an appointment.
Oh, that's right. So you were very intentional.
Yeah.
Right, so you reached out and you said, please come by,
Yeah.
see my work.
I signed up for that. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it was so it's my bad memory. It was a group thing.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was one of the group.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's funny because I just remember you. Like.
Oh, that's great though. You remember me. So
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah. So I should mention to the audience that I have a group of questions here that I have written out. So this is not entirely spontaneous. I'm going to be reading from this list. So that's how it's going to run.
Are we starting now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this one.
Are you doing a slide thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't. Okay. Okay.
Great.
Seph.
Since you are Korean, by your very being as a Korean artist working here in the US, do you feel that you are tasked with introducing what we might think of as fresh ideas to the quote-unquote Western canon?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, is that what you want to do? Do you consider that your responsibility?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not trying to introduce any fresh idea, but I do not want to see some artificial visual things in art. For me, it's like my background, my upbringing, and my histories, and then what I heard, what I learned, revealed through my work. Then somehow the Westerners look at it, and also my work style methods are completely or much different from traditional Western style art making. Working with the raw materials, styles, and whatnot. So for other people, think it's very odd, and also maybe strange, and also at the same time very compelling. So which means it is a great way to open a dialogue. And I believe that art has the power to do that. Even though you don't understand that, but you can ask questions. So that's what I'm trying to do. As a Korean American, like I'm 5'1/4" tall Korean woman walking in the melting pot, New York City, who cares about me? They don't know me, they don't know who I am. But one thing good about New York City, because of that, watching and seeing and also like gazing is maybe perhaps irrelevant because we all mixed together. Which is, I love that, really love that. However, when it comes to art, it's different matter. It's very close to you. And so.
I just want to sort of press that point a little bit. One of the things that I've been doing in the last year is I have this long-term writing project, which I may have mentioned to you. Long-term writing project with the Ford Foundation, which had me going around the country speaking to people at various arts and cultural organizations about what they do, the communities they serve, et cetera, et cetera. I think at least one occasion, maybe more than one, I had reason to revisit the idea of the melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a really old, and in some circles, obsolete idea. What one of the metaphors that people use to talk about the ways that people mix in a heterogeneous society is more the idea of a salad, in that you have the ingredients that don't get sort of lost in a sort of mash, but rather they as in a salad, they retain their particular flavors and characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you taste the lettuce, and you taste the croutons, and you taste the anchovies or whatever, and together they create a kind of flavor melange that is also enticing. So I just wanted to mention that because I feel like the melting pot is so deeply embedded in our cultural vocabulary,
True. Mm-hmm.
but it's yeah, maybe not the right metaphor. So I was going to ask you next whether you feel like you're caught up in the role of being a translator, but given what you just said, you do not feel that way.
I don't feel like I'm a visual translator
Right.
because everyone has their own language.
Right.
And they're a great communicator in their own unique ways. So who am I translating anything? I only can speak English and Korean, a little bit of Chinese, maybe poquito Español, and that's it. So, but with the visual language is, if I can make something I love to do, and then if I can touch someone's heart,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's plenty for me.
Mm.
It's good enough.
Mm. Well, I mean, one of the things that you use that figures prominently in your work is rice.
Yes.
And rice has I don't like the term universal because it always sounds much too sort of arrogant, like human beings are the only creatures that matter in the universe. But it has a worldwide sort of significance, rice does. I mean, on every continent, right?
Absolutely.
It appears. So that leads me to ask you, in your work, I noticed that it operates as a kind of recurring motif, as a kind of commodity, as a building block from which you make lots of things, and as a metaphor. I'm wondering whether it's also a memory. And if it is a memory, is it one that is haunting you or one that's seductive?
Both.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you seduction first, because it's very easy to talk about it. You may think rice, some other people think of rice as a staple, but for me, way beyond a staple. It's more than that. I will talk more about that later. But for seduction, it's like when you are feel like kind of a little lonely or empty or something living in the United States, the favorite food is like white rice, sticky white rice with wrap with the kimchi and put in the dry seaweed wrap, and you eat it. You are earlier talking about salad mixing things. This chemistry between those three is amazing. If you never experienced it, you may not know, because I grew up with that. And then these feelings of that food taste is beyond just the food. It's like safe and comfort. So when I came to the United States, because I'm a Korean, I met such a lot of good people. But there are some not so good people. Really asked me to like really nasty comments about me as who I am, the way I looks. This is a constant reminder to be strong. And then ended up work. When I came home, I make pot of rice and they eat those food with the little side dishes, banchan we call it. It's actually regaining my physical strength, but also my spirit. And such a reminder that I don't forget as who I am. Become more stronger as my identity. Food is my identity for me. And then it's very spiritual for me, emotionally and physically. But if you're talking about hunting, it's really sad because when Korean War ended July 27, 1953.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't born that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like much later.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw was famine in South Korea, and in late 60s in that period. One thing I never forget because it imprinted my brain that I don't know you heard like 꿀꿀이죽, pig food.
Oh.
Some people call it UN tongue, means after war, American GI, they remain in South Korea.
Uh-huh.
And everyone struggled at the time. North Korea is even worse than South Korea.
Uh-huh.
Although GI remain in South Korea, they go NCO club, officers club, they eat their food, and then end of the day, the waitress collect all those food and put it in the 55-gallon of a drum, put it in there, and those big drum goes out of the base.
Wow.
And then what people do, people gather lined up, and then they have like pots and pans
Wow.
to get those food
Oh.
like that.
Oh. So it was really about survival.
It is survival, but also it's all the mothers. They are not only feeding themselves, their children, but they are actually feeding war orphan kids. Right. It doesn't matter whose kids, they all gather together, cook big pots. They share them. I saw that they're holding the pots and pans and whatever. So I asked my mom, well, what are they doing that? And then they are surviving. They have to do that. And then she told me that why not to waste food, how to appreciate the food, and how to share food. That was like, still today, I don't waste food at all. Even the public restaurant you go, doggy bag, I love that. I bring all the food. Right. Even a little bit of remain food, I bring it home. Okay. Because for me, raising food is a simple thing. Not lying is a simple thing, but for me, wasting food is a simple thing for me. So that is like really, for me, it's really, really struggle memory. And another thing is like, New York City has 1.2 million people still suffering with food. And UN also talk about, 783 million people are 2020. Yeah. This is not something you can just like dismiss. In my near my studio, there are homeless people everywhere. It's constant reminder, really, you do not want to really waste your food. Another thing is like, I want to introduce Trinity Minha. She's like one of the favorite filmmaker. She teaches at Berkeley. When I study over her, someone who say that you're not an activist, why are you making art with like activist attitude and this and that? And I said that, when artists generate artwork, it may not reveal on surfaces, but the motivation and generating their ideas from deep down roots. That's Trinity Minha said, like, you cannot speak for them, but you can speak nearby them. I really love the statements because every time when I'm talking about food, hunger, whatnot, and someone would ask me, have you ever been homeless? I cannot say yes. But do you understand that how they're going through? I cannot understand 100%, but I can be empathy about it. I work with like shelters, whatnot, volunteering. But so I am very sensible about that, statement. So it's not like I'm not knowing or understanding. Yeah. So I just want to say that. Yeah.
Thank you. I have to admit, Hayoon, that my sensibility is a little bit different. I grew up in a working class family, which around the dinner table where my mom and dad have very much had that attitude that you never waste food. And I remember my mom doing things like, if the cheese got a little moldy, she would just like scrape the moldy bit off and like eat the rest of it. And not anymore. I've become. I think I'm that generation that's just got a little bit of that attitude of taking things for granted. Yes, that's right. And speaking of keeping things, treating things as precious resources and not taking them for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that in some of the performances,
Yep.
you have bags where that hang over
Yeah.
head, and then you cut them and the rice pours out like a kind of waterfall. And it's a beautiful poetic kind of gesture. But I was wondering what happens to that rice, like whether it's disposed of or you keep it and use it in other pieces or what?
Well, again, like when I have, especially performance,
Mm.
no matter how large the floor is, no matter how small they are, I always put down the paper,
Mm.
clean paper,
Mm.
bare feet or you wear socks. Reason because a couple of reasons. First reason, when rice falling down to the surface of a paper,
Mm-hmm.
the sound of it is almost like it raining falling down with the spirit. And I really love the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to go around in the high school and not wearing umbrella and falling water, the rain. I soak with the, I was dancing in the water, rain all the time. But this is different. Rice that have you, I don't know you guys felt that, but feeling of that
Mm-hmm.
is such a different feelings.
Mm.
Number one is that. Number two is when I finish the performance, people are really love playing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what they do, they take with them.
Mm-hmm.
I always provided like little envelopes.
Like a little keepsake.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's doggy bag.
Mm-hmm.
They take a raw rice in their doggy bags and then they take home. Some people take more than one or two. Some people even take a whole bag, remain on the ceiling. They can cut it and take it home. That's okay for me. And the rest of them, what I do, I bring to my studio. I share with my friends. Sometimes I donate it to local restaurant. One time I had a lot of rice and I could not figure out how to handle that. So I collect them and gave it to like senior home. I contact them. I let them know how I use them, make sure they wash them, but there's no stone, nothing. But I let them know that I do that. And then I eat them. I make art with that. So if you're hungry, just let me know. Give us some rice
So actually,
anytime.
so I grew up in a household, for people who do not know, I'm Jamaican. I grew up in a household with a very Jamaican father who would say to my mother, whenever she had the temerity not to make dinner with white rice, he would say, "It's not dinner unless there's white rice." So it's
Sticky
a
rice
thing.
for us.
Yeah. In performances like these, where I guess it's typical in the art scene to say that these performances activate your work. If that is right, if that's the right verb to use, does the performance then make your work come alive in a way that it was not? And if so, when it is quote unquote not active, when it's passive, is there something missing?
Well, all I can say, my performance, installation, sculpture, rice relief work, or even making video and sound, what I do, those activates, it comes from actually the inspired by the layers of existence of a human being. I mean, it doesn't, for me personally, it's not about just making, this and that, but I think I have to ferment my time and thinking about what's happening within myself. And those things activated. The fermenting time is very important to me. Like the bubbles, like unknowing, not knowing, or confused, like am I doing right thing or wrong thing, and am I allowed to do this or not? Those questions really mix together and then makes performance and that. But however, performance is activating very differently because audiences bring their own energy.
Right.
I'm not the only one.
Right.
30% is lay out with the roughly preliminary ideas I have, but the rest 70 improvised. audience bring their own energy, their own spirit, and I really love that. But when I make art in my studio, it's different stories.
Right.
It's my own meditative time, but also like a very tranquilized time. And then I try to empty my mind because we go crazy. I go crazy sometimes. So I just, it's almost like 5 seconds of a breath of journey. I
5 seconds
breathe
to what?
breath
Mm-hmm.
of a journey.
Ah, okay.
That's why I make one by one with a tweezer,
Right.
like praying, like just
Ah,
making. But the
mm,
journey is, some people say it's painful looking, but not at all. For me, it's very peaceful.
mm,
And then also, emptying your mind is like, it's almost prayer for me. It's praying. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
activates, I don't know, it's a
mm,
spirit for me.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
And the energy.
I mean, I mean, this is kind of going off script, but I mean, one of the things that makes me think of is the very famous thing that the painter. Hold on a second. It's not Leon Golub. It's ay ay ay. He did the Ku Klux Klansman
Oh,
towards the end of his life.
Philip Gust.
Thank you.
Philip Gust. They work
Right.
at the Met.
What Guston said famously was that, and I think it's the opposite kind of what you're saying.
Huh.
He said that when you're in the studio, when you first start out, at your day in the studio, like everyone is in the studio with you.
Ooh.
So your teachers, your mentors,
Huh.
your fellow artists, the people you've heard about, the people you admire, the people you hate, they're all in the studio with you. And as you work, if you stay there long enough, they all get up and leave.
Uh-huh.
And if you keep staying there working, eventually you leave too.
That's beautiful.
And so maybe actually it's not the opposite. Maybe that's exactly what you're talking about, and like coming to that place of an attitude of prayer. Like maybe that is commensurate with you leaving too.
Yeah, because I have so many like what influences people giving so much. I saw so many works and whatnot. It's like I like to pare down, filtering down. I just cannot work with a murky mind and thinking about someone who hovering over me and this and that. Then it's not me. Maybe some other people can do that. It's personally, I have a purification time with my own time with my peace. And Rice is, we have a very understanding mutual relationship. I always talk like a Rice, like a human, but that's the way I work. I don't know, everyone works differently, so. But I love their statements, yeah, really.
Right. This is a thing that I've actually wanted to ask a lot of artists who engage in work that participates in samples ritual. I always wonder about, I mean, for me, the use of ritual that has a very sort of clear historical tradition is powerful because, like, like this performance here, what you're wearing has a history, and that I think tends to ground the artist. But I always wonder whether that ritual, that thing that's sort of connected to a historical tradition, can be used to say something about our contemporary moment. And I wonder what has to happen for that to be relevant now.
Okay. I can say a couple of things. The word ritual is very religious connotation, very heavy. But don't you think all the artists making art, the process is ritual act in a way?
Oh, that's right.
Their own ways.
That's fair. Yes.
I think it's fair statements.
Yes.
I think
That's
they
right.
do.
Yeah.
But for me, before when I did performance, I didn't wear hanbok. I just wear regular clothes, whatnot. And so at some point, I realized that I would like to wear them because it has such a history, like what you just said. But also, it has some kind of honor as a Korean, honor to wear that. At the same time, it sets tone of identity. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So hanbok is Korean traditional custom. I'm wearing that. Also, like, not only that, each performance when I do have a different symbolic meaning and statement. So people often ask me, like, what are you wearing? Why are you doing this? Why are you that? Like, all those things. Then I say that, some people call me, you're like shamanistic person.
Right.
It looks like a shamanist person,
Yeah.
like wearing all those things. Like
Yeah.
I said, you can look at it that way. It's spirit anyway. But for me, the performance, especially when people coming to share the moment at the same times,
Mm-hmm.
I like earlier I say I'm not the only one raising the energy. That their energy, my energy mixed together like a big wave, like mixing together, and then they create such a beautiful the moments. At the time, it doesn't matter who you are. You're doctors. You're poor people. You're yellow, purple. Who cares? You're a human being. We are all together at the same times. What we do, we sharing the moment.
So,
So that's a ritual for me.
yeah, that's curious to me because when I see some performances, not necessarily yours, I don't think I've attended one of your performances yet,
Yes.
but when I generally do, my feeling is always a slight anxiety, and maybe this says more about me than it does about anything else, but my feeling is like a slight anxiety that, oh, this is not really in control because you have this audience and they're in the room with their own energies, their own concerns, la la la, that something might go a little pear-shaped. It might go weird because you're not in control.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're collaborating with folks you do not know.
That's beautiful though,
Oh, okay.
because you don't control.
Okay.
Who you think you are controlling? You can. You just let them be free. And then if the moments of energy good enough,
Mm.
you may be surprised.
Mm.
Even
Mm.
shy people come and some people cry, some people rolling, and
Mm.
some people like to their own expression. And in the end, when I ask a question,
Mm.
to my surprise, I really thought like, wow, I didn't know something.
Mhm.
They know. They have their own feelings they want to reveal, their moments, because the platform is already provided for them to do that. So I think that way maybe, the performance is good.
Have you ever been in one of those a crass way to say this is one of those Holy Ghost churches where people
Oh,
like
yeah.
catch the spirit
Yeah,
and
Washington, D.C., yeah.
and they
Yeah,
just
Baptist
do
church.
whatever,
Yeah.
like, and you feel at home in that environment.
Perhaps because I used to live in Washington D.C. area, and then one of the lady coworkers, she took me to their church,
Uh-huh.
and I have to say, I was just shocked. I'm a little Korean woman, went there to see the church, everyone dancing, like that they really wild, and then. In the beginning, I was like
Yeah, it's like a
very
rodeo.
awkward, like they
Yeah.
really dance. Even pastor was dancing as well, like jumping ups and downs, like. So I think that they're possessed by spirit at the time, but they're really enjoying it, and I was kind of enjoying the moment. Like I didn't. 10 minutes later, I'm not shy. I just there whole time, hour sermon. I understand that, it's okay. Different type of sermon, it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
spirit is spirit.
Love it. Just three more questions here. So, thinking specifically about your installations, which I find actually really, in some cases, really breathtakingly beautiful, like that one. I love that shape, that sort of paisley, and that sort of motion towards and away from lightness. Um, Installations such as One Breath 3 and Breathing, you use rice, which is a material, as we've been discussing, that's very much about human sustenance and survival. But you aesthetically manipulate it so that it becomes something else, a kind of visual feast. In making these transformations, over the course of your entire sort of practice? Are you making some sort of statement about what feeds us beyond the physical?
That wasn't my intention, but I'm gonna give you some answers that how I studied this one. That might give you some idea. You know, the rice, the roles are changing because it changed from the rice no longer in the bowl. Rice become a bowl.
Right.
They change their identity and their roles. And top of that, in the beginning, I was like thinking about this, and then Korean expression we call household, individual household is a mouth. Meaning you must feed that house. You have to feed them. So household equals to your mouth. As we go to food. So having said that, 2011, I had an opportunity to go to sculpture space in Utica. When I got there, there's like, it's a ghost town. And not many people on the street. There are some, sick people on the street. So what I did, my curious is every time I go to a new strange place, I would research. Who are they? What are they eating? Why here? So I rode a bike all over the Utica town, back and forth here and there. And then they gave me warning that you should not be out after sunset because it might be dangerous. So I'm pretty good. I can ride really fast and come back and forth. And then there's an open mic place at night.
Okay.
So I went there to see some local people. That when you go to local bar and local place, you can see real spirits. Real people. They are hanging out at night. So I went there and I met some really nice musicians and really nice people. I asked around, what about this town? Educate me. I'm a stranger here. And they give me a lot of education about that. Like in 80s, 90s, the whole industrial is like a shutdown. Because like, what was that? Lockheed Martin company and General Electric Motor left at that time. The whole buildings and factories are shut down. And then small local business people left there. Because not much there. They went near the town. There is more than 3,000 abandoned buildings at the time, 2011 when I was there. You can buy $30,000, you can buy a whole building for $30,000. But there's no business, not many people. But the people at night, like zombies, they actually made that happen. They stay there, they work there, they try to save the town. They gather together, they find the music. Elementary school, I used to volunteer there while I'm 2 months. That opens up, it humbled me really so much. So my project was, let's fast. Fasting is, I eat rice every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I fast for 1 meal, sometimes 2 meals, and start saving. It's symbolic for me. So save the things to make it. Rice bowl, slowly making it. Like I made a mold, I started making it, and then in the end, I met more people, and this is not just acting. It become like myself. I want to be in. So I buy more rice, start making it. So I made more than 3,000 rice bowl at the time. That become my building block. They inspire me. So every time when I do new installation, like individual rice bowl has their own histories for me.
Okay.
So I can manipulate such a way, that respectful way, to reveal my ideas, feelings. So that started there. Like really, the colors are all original color, no dyeing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's like, scientists prove that there is more than 200,000 different type of rice today. Yeah, so if you wanna try, you can try. Yeah, black rice, white rice mixed together,
Which is something that I actually, I didn't have that number and I didn't realize that fact, but in some of your work, there's a kind of cataloging of different kinds of rice. And I did notice that there's either a Japanese or Chinese red rice that is like
Chinese red rice,
yeah,
East rice, red
deeply
East
red.
life.
Yeah. Which I've never eaten. I've never, I don't think I've ever actually seen in real life. There are these scientific schemes that you use, and this idea of like, or you seem to be working out this idea of cataloging things. And the history of the catalog is that it's supposed to make the world comprehensible to us, right? It's supposed to make it something that is less of a mystery. Is that the significance of the catalog for you, or is there something else at play?
I'm not cataloging things, but I'm collecting people's stories. I'm not interested in scientific, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not really good at all those like Einstein numbers, and I don't. But I am actually collecting. I'm a very good listener in a way. I love listening people's stories. When I listen, it's nurturing me in a way, and then also I reveal them through my art. This is one of them too, and also kitchen-related objects is so important to me because individual object has their own history as well.
Right.
When I did this project, it's like before I did that, I contact the South Korean, like figure out, and that they business people who lost their businesses, the rice farmer who lost their farm, they have like thousands of like abandoned rice bag in their warehouse. So I collect those. And I met so many people, and talking to them, listening to them, and documenting their voices. Like we talk about it, and then they donate all those bowls and kitchens and kitchenwares, like iron cast, things like that. So for me, this piece also donated about it. For me, it's like cataloging is not like I was intentionally doing that, but collecting people's stories, like what a compelling stories they have. I respect all of them. There's no bad stories. There's all beautiful stories of their life. Because if you don't have a past, how can you have a today and tomorrow? So for me, even simple object is not object for me. It's a living being for me, existence of what it is. So I'm collecting them. like
So on that, and hold that image, please. When I was teaching a course on research methodologies in at Parsons several years ago, I think it was like last year was 2018. I had a moment or a section of the class where I talked about material culture. I also talked about visual culture, but material culture is particularly relevant here. And that I would show them something like that, like a cup or even a glass like this, and I would say, what material culture does is it takes very seriously that you can look at this and tell something about our culture. And I would say, can you do that? Can you imagine what this says about our culture? And this is like, well, and it takes them a while to get there, but eventually we figure out that there's a sort of technological prowess that we have to have in order to make these plastic things, right?
Absolutely.
There's also a certain orientation towards our natural resources that makes us make so many of them that end up in landfill, right? So there's a certain attitude, a certain orientation towards the idea of sustainability that is wrapped up in making these things. And I want to say that, clearly you can see a history of a people in that cup, right? You can see a certain kind of care and a certain kind of time investment to make that thing out of clay or out of my knowledge of this is very rusty, porcelain maybe, and glaze it and print that insignia on it. Like that says something about the nature of the culture from which it comes.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's something that I only really started to grok when I started teaching that class. And last question.
Okay.
The works of the Dreamland, Motherland, and Little Land series are evocative of a topography of imagined places. And then when I was looking at these several weeks ago, that what came to mind to me, and actually even looking at that piece that's there on the wall, I think of the William Blake poem, which is Auguries of Innocence, in which he writes, "To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, to
Right.
hold infinity in the palm of your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and eternity in an hour." And for me, that was always a kind of difficult poem to parse because I didn't get how you could hold infinity in such an infinite thing in such a finite object. But then I think that that's kind of what your work is doing. Like you get a sense with some of these pieces of how like, because it looks like a world. It looks like a world that could go on and on and on. And yet it is made up of these tiny bits of rice with modeling paste.
Right.
So there's a kind of finite infinity relationship, I think, that I'm finally starting to like be able to make sense of by looking at your work. Does that sound like it's a good approximation of what you're doing?
I think you just said it right on dot.
Mm,
Because I see the grain of rice like a small little tiny, way fragile looking. But
mm,
what do you see that in? Like I see the universe.
mm,
There's a life and death, the beauty, the
mm,
love, empathy, compassion, love, community. And how
mm,
can you not see that? Because
mm,
I really, I mean, everybody has different way of looking at things, but especially rice is for me beyond just rice. It's
mm,
like an eternal mother comforting you, but
mm,
also embracing you for those who needed it.
mm,
A Buddhist monk, I remember he just ate 1 grain of a day, 1 grain of a day for praying.
mm,
And for me, it's like rice. I don't know. Maybe I'm obsessed with the rice in a way, but I respect them very much.
mm,
So all this landscape series is not physical landscape. Start with a one little here, and then like one by one, the time base through, and then it grows,
mm,
but not against, but
mm,
with the grain.
mm,
Um, and then to me, then geography or landscape is not just physical; it's emotional landscape,
mm.
and as well as memory landscape.
Mhm.
So it looks very artificial for some people. Perhaps it's not for me. And
Mm,
then also infinity of the rice travel all over.
mm,
Even the tiny little piece, like I can show you a little land, but within a small little island or small little land has their own universe. And
mm,
I really love that about that
mm,
feelings.
mm,
Like it's small but fragile looking,
mhm,
but in the end, when you finish the piece,
mhm.
it's not really fragile, actually.
So this reminds me of the thing that I shared with you when we had a phone conversation weeks ago.
Yeah.
That film by Charles and Ray Eames
Mm-hmm.
called Powers of Ten. By the way, if you all have never seen Powers of Ten, some of you are nodding. It's an astonishing film. It's available on YouTube. And what it does is it goes from, I think it starts off with a couple, very heteronormative couple, having a picnic, and it starts looking at them. The camera moves away from them
Mm-hmm.
by a power of 10 every 10 seconds.
Yes.
So as you're watching them, like you eventually see them within a park, and then within a state, and then within a country, and then within the planet, and then a planet within a galaxy, and then it's further, and then it zooms back in the opposite way, and it goes into I think a
Steam.
cell.
Yeah, yours. Yeah.
Yeah, one cell,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes deeper and deeper until you realize that there is an entire world
Mm-hmm.
within one cell.
Yeah.
So that was when we had our conversation. I said, "Oh, you need to see this film," and then you told me that you did, and it
Yeah.
made such sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was love that. Yeah. I mean, just really like we makes me feel very small,
Mm,
very humbling.
mm,
Like when you go to all the top of a building, when you look at the people,
mm,
It's give you perspective. So
I mean, honestly, I tend not to see people as special. I mean, again, that says more about me than it does about anything else. But I do have, every now and again, I have a conversation with an artist friend of mine, Che Lovelace. He's a painter from Trinidad. And Che is, like you, relentlessly positive about humans. Like he desperately loves humanity, and every time I talk with him about the swirl of things that we are in right now, socio-cultural, economic changes, la la la, he always makes me feel like there's hope at the end of the conversation. Like, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Okay. And you kind of made me feel that way, so thank you.
it's not so bad.
Yeah, not so
We're
bad.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even though what happened in Gaza with the food issues, like when I watch news, really, really, really hard to watch and listen those things. But yet, because of that, and I'm more grateful. Like, it's such a reminder for me, like not to. So, well, really thank you. But if we have a time, I can show some video. Okay, do you have time? 5 more minutes? Okay. Gonna play. Everyone, share. Put a stick on your faces. Put it on all of you. This one was 25 minutes, 25 minutes performance, and then we cut it to 5 minutes, so which is great. So I hope I answered your questions, though.
I think you did. I
Thank
think
you
you
so
answered
much.
them very thoroughly. Thank you.
This is my honor, really.
And do we have time for audience questions?
One question,
Okay.
or she says she,
One
okay.
very thoughtful question.
Anybody has questions? Okay.
Yeah, hi. Having worked with rice for so long,
Yes.
my question to you is, in your perspective, in your experience, does rice itself have inherent meaning, or does it only have meaning because we give it meaning? Like, I know there's no right answer to this, but I would like your perspective because I know how long you've worked with rice. So, yeah.
Inherit, you say? Inherent. Yes, in my country, I don't know you're Korean or not, but we have a long history about rice, especially when during the Japanese invasion. A lot of Korean people don't have rice to eat. We shipped all those rice to Japan. For me, I don't know. For me, I didn't work with the rice before. I was trained as a traditional trainer, classical painting, classical sculptures. I was very good broadcaster and welding well. I can carve trees and wood and copper working. I used to do that, but somehow when we start doing eating food together, a lot of people remain rice in the table. I just collect them as a pure natural feeling that I don't want to waste the food. So I brought it into my studio. I started making a little bit and then put it into my studio. It became somehow we spiritually connected each other 1 year later. The sculpture was remain in my studio, but I never want to work with them. Never crossed my mind. So I don't know. I answer your question.
I think what
That
he's
was what you
getting at
said.
more is that I think what you're asking is whether the thing that grows on the planet has any inherent meaning beyond the uses that we put it to. So beyond the sort of social, historical, cultural, all the ways that manifests in your work. What I think you're getting at is that imagine this planet doesn't have humans on it, and the rice is growing. Does it have meaning? It's this sort of almost sort of. I'm not very well versed in this philosophy or this philosophical tradition, but it's sort of like Berkeley's question about it's just an existentialist question. And I think my answer would be no, it doesn't have any inherent meaning outside of the meanings to which we put it to use. It is meaningful to us. I mean, we are the creature on the planet who is of the animals on this planet, we are gifted with relative to our size, we are gifted with the largest brains. And commingled with that is this thing we call consciousness, which makes us really, really concerned about shit that other people do and shit that we do, makes us really like wonder, oh, is that the right thing to do? Did we do it like our ancestors did it? If we didn't, then why? Like we're a meaning-making species. This is what we do. Yeah. So I think the answer is it doesn't have any meaning outside of us. For us. It will mean other things to the animal life and the plant life and the protozoa life, and there's another kingdom, um, um, Protista, I think is what I'm saying. All the other forms of life on the planet, yes, it's meaningful to those forms of life, but for us, these are the meanings, these are the uses to which we put it, and that's how it's meaningful.
Oh, on top of that, rice history goes far back, more than 5,000 years, 15,000 years ago. So, um, I don't know exactly, but that's history makes a lot of sense because you have to survive to eat them. From China to all over East and West and India and whatnot. So if you're talking about agriculture history, we can talk about hours about that, and I did a lot of research on that. However, like what Seth said, it makes sense because we make our meanings in a way. We needed it, especially now everybody needs it. Even white people love rice, not only Asians. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this lovely talk. I have a question. Today we talked about time a lot. You talked about fermentation time, purification time. We mentioned William Blake and talked about eternity. And I was wondering what is your work's relation to time? I don't know if rice lasts forever or if it deteriorates in time. How long can these survive? And I wonder if it's important for you.
Time is now, though. For me, time is now. I'm not worried about how long it lasts with the rice piece, because 5 years ago, the scientists found out that like 20,000 years old rice, they discovered them too. So I'm not going to worry about how long my recipe is gonna last forever. But for me, time is from the moment I met rice from young age. At the time I met as a person, as an artist, is another time. Time that I start beginning to make a one from the canvas or a panel to finish. Those time is journey, not only my journey with the rice, we go together. The time we sit together talking about rice, that's time. So if you are weaving all those things together, I don't know what is the right answer for that. Time is now for me, like time to eat, time to finish.
And it is time to finish, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Hayoon and Seph, for this lovely conversation. If you haven't, the exhibition gallery is right behind you, and hope you'll join us again. But please join me in thanking Hayoon and Seph.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.